What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're talking about a kind of double game week announcement, right? It's not clickbait. There is going to be another double game week. We just don't quite yet know if it's going to be in 34 or 35. So in this video, I'm going to talk through what the different scenarios are, what the fixtures might look like, and then just some initial thoughts as well. So this is all based on the FA Cup semi-final, because whoever gets through out of Chelsea or Crystal Palace will then have to play, obviously, the final, which is in game week 37. So they won't be able to play their double game weeks that are both currently scheduled in game week 37. So if Chelsea win, there will be a double game week in game week 34. If Crystal Palace win, there'll be a double game week in 35. Now, the bookies' favourites are obviously going to be Chelsea to win. I'm sure if I gave you lot a tenner each to bet on the game, you'd probably bet on Chelsea as well. But who knows? This is football. Crystal Palace might win. They might get through. So we're going to go through both different scenarios, okay? And we'll talk about the fixtures and stuff. So if Chelsea win, Chelsea versus Man United will be moved from game week 37 to game week 34. Chelsea would still play in game week 37. They'd have Leicester at home, but Man United would blank. Now, I don't think that's a huge concern. I don't think anyone's tripling up on Man United in their actual teams anytime soon. Maybe in their free hit, but not in your actual team. So you're not going to get to game week 37 with 3 Man United players. So don't worry too much about that. In game week 34 then, Chelsea's double would be West Ham at home, Man United away. And Man United would be Arsenal away and Chelsea at home. Now, they're both fairly difficult doubles. I would say Man United is a little bit harder. And Man United in general, the players just aren't quite as good for FPL as Chelsea players. And Chelsea's fixtures afterwards, as we'll see in a minute, are also much better. So they are probably the key team to take away from this happening if they obviously win that FA Cup game against Palace. The only annoying thing is that game will happen after game week 33 deadline. So we're not going to be able to make any changes based on what happens until game week 34. You might be able to hedge your bets. So if you were thinking about bringing in a Man United player, for example, this week for the double, and you think, well, Chelsea probably will win that FA Cup, well, then Man United have got 2 games next week as well, so they might be worth keeping for 1 additional week. That's something to at least worth considering. If Palace win, Villa versus Palace will move from game week 37. That will move to game week 35. Villa would have but neither of these two teams would blank in 37. They just have single game week fixtures. So this is also going to tie into what about free hit, I was looking to free hit in game week 37, possibly for Villa players and Palace players. But if they win in the FA Cup, the free hit in 37 suddenly becomes a little bit weaker, I would say. But if it does get moved, Villa would have Burnley at home in 37. Palace would have Everton away. And in game week 35, Villa would have Norwich at home and Palace at home. And bearing in mind, these double game week 34 or double game week 35, it can only be one or the other. They're going to be the only teams doubling. So if you want to captain a double game week player, you got to start thinking about how you might get them in. So if Villa and Palace get moved to game week 35, who will you captain? Looking at the fixtures, Norwich at home, Palace at home, to me, Coutinho suddenly stands out as the obvious captain. How will that affect my transfer plans this week, next week, if that happens? It's something to think about. Because suddenly, getting Coutinho in before you were to get Mason Mount, for example, for the double in 36, might be the way forward. Obviously, if Chelsea win, then none of this matters. But it's just something to think about. And then Palace would have Southampton away, Villa away. So that would also be pretty good. So one thing to look at is the fixtures. So these are the fixtures for Chelsea and Man United if Chelsea beat Crystal Palace, okay? Obviously the fixtures look a little bit different as it stands. So they would have Arsenal at home this week. Players might get rotated in that. They've just played 120 minutes in Europe. They've got an FA Cup game to win as well. There might be some rotation. But then they would have a double of West Ham at home, Man United away. So suddenly, anyone wildcard in game week 34 is probably going to have 3 Chelsea players. I would say 2 defenders and an attacker mostly. So Mount or Havertz plus James and Rudiger for most people, I would say. Everton away, which at the moment looks like a fairly decent fixture. They'd still have their double in 36, Wolves at home and Leeds away. Then they just have their single game week of Leicester at home in 37 and then Watford at home in game week 38. So overall, a pretty decent run. And if you're someone with 2 free hits or you're just saving 1 for 36 or 37 anyway, then keeping your Chelsea boys from the double in 34 all the way to 36 and then free hitting some of them out against Leicester could be a plan. And then you get them back for Watford at home. So suddenly Chelsea players look really good. Man United would have the double that's already scheduled. So they'd have that Norwich game, then they play Liverpool away, then Arsenal away, then Chelsea at home. So don't get me wrong, 3 of those 4 fixtures look pretty tough. Not arguing against that. And obviously you've got to worry about whether players will play so many games in quick succession. But someone like Bruno Fernandes, for example, you'd expect him to probably start all 4, right? There's going to be players that do. And then even if you were kind of stuck with them because something else occurred, having them to play against Brentford at home is probably not the worst thing either, depending on what you're having to sacrifice to get there. Also, it's a bit of a weird one where the doubles don't look great for clean sheets, but Brentford at home, Brighton away, Palace away, I mean, they might be okay. I get it, it's Man United, right, we're talking about. But I don't know, just something to think about, especially if you're someone on like a goalkeeper combination of De Gea plus someone else. De Gea now looks pretty decent to hold on to. It's just game week 37 you've got to consider because they're not going to play that week. If if Crystal Palace win in the FA Cup, then Villa will obviously still blank this week regardless. Leicester away in game week 34. And then that really nice looking, I mean, it's back-to-back doubles with Norwich, Palace and Burnley. They've just switched, right? Instead of having a double in 37, they've had it in 35. So they'll still have back-to-back doubles just a bit earlier. And they'll play Norwich at home instead of Burnley at home. So arguably, it's a little bit easier, a little bit better. But either way, it looks pretty good. And if I had Coutinho and I maybe had a way to keep him, I'd possibly think about it. Either way, like if Palace win against Chelsea, I'll be looking at how I can get Coutinho in for 35. And then would probably just keep him for 36. I don't know if I would necessarily spend a transfer on him. The only thing with Villa, and this is something to consider for anyone that's looking to free hit in 37, what team will you get back in 38? You don't really want to play too many of your Villa players against Man City away. Crystal Palace, again, if they win, and I have put, one thing I forgot to mention is the FA Cup final would be between Leeds away and Leicester at home. So there could be some rotation for Chelsea against Leeds or against Leicester, or possibly both, right? Especially if top 4's wrapped up at that point. For Palace, the FA Cup final between Watford and Everton. So when they finish game week 36, the next game will be the FA Cup final, and then they'll play Everton away in game week 37. So again, there could be some rotation, but it's one of those situations you're probably not going to bring Palace players in this week unless they happen to enable you into another move. But Newcastle away, Leeds at home on paper are pretty good. Southampton and Villa away in the double isn't bad either. And then Watford at home is decent as well. So someone like Zaha, maybe one of their cheap defenders, could be an option. I think out of all 4 of the teams we talked about, Palace are probably the ones I'm kind of least interested in, only because of the way the fixtures fall, right? So Chelsea would have an earlier double game week and they've got one in 36. Man United have got a double this week, so that obviously makes them a little bit, relevant's the wrong word, but a little bit more interesting, I would say. And obviously Villa would have that incredible double in 35, whereas Palace, you don't really necessarily want to bring them in this week. Maybe next week for Leeds at home, possibly, and then the double, and then Watford at home. Someone like Zaha could be good, but I think they're the least, like, apart from Villa, obviously, because they've got no game. You're probably not going to bring them in this week, is what I'm trying to say, in a really bad way. So just some initial thoughts. Chelsea obviously become really important if they win that semi-final. I think a lot of people will triple up if they're on a wild card. I've already got Reece James. I would definitely look to see if I can add another defender, or at the bare minimum, get an attacker in, probably Mason Mount. Man United slightly better value. I'm not saying that their stock suddenly increases massively at all, but if you were thinking about getting one anyway, the extra fixture would probably make them worth keeping in game week 34. And the one thing I would definitely take away is, when you're planning your transfers for this week, what happens next week if Chelsea and Man United double, and what happens if they don't? How does that affect your next move? And are you going to block anything by what you do this week? Okay, so if you sell a big player, Salah or Son, to get Fernandes, does that mess you up for game week 34 or 35? It's something worth kind of considering. The one thing I've not written down here, because I spoke about earlier, because there's a double in 34 and or 35. Now I keep saying it's right, or 35. In one of those weeks, you're not necessarily going to need them, one of your big hitters like Son, Kane or Salah, to be your captain. So I don't know about you, but if Chelsea and Man United double in 34, I will probably opt for one of them instead of Salah against Everton at home. And the same in 35. Instead of going for one of the big boys, I think Salah plays Southampton. Salah plays Newcastle away that week, and Spurs have got Leicester at home. I'd probably just go for Coutinho. So I need to think about how that will fit into my plans. This announcement's only just happened, so I haven't thought it all through yet. But that's just something to think about. you could free hit in 37 to get rid of your Chelsea players if they win, like I said. We still don't 100% know if Man City are going to play in Double Game Week 36 or Double Game Week 37, which doesn't help matters. That is key information we could really do with. And we might know more after their FA Cup results against Liverpool as well. But that hasn't been preliminary announced or anything. Obviously, whatever happens, Game Week 37 will lose a double game week for two teams. So, for at least one double game week fixture. So either Chelsea will lose theirs, or Villa and Palace will both lose theirs in Game Week 37. So only Man United have the potential to blank, as I said earlier, but at least a team or two are going to lose their double game week in 37. So that might make the free hit a little bit weaker. And obviously, like I said, Coutinho could be worth holding. So in terms of my team, luckily it's a Saturday deadline. So I'm going to try and have a think about this tonight and then maybe talk through on the game week preview tomorrow, or maybe even do a separate video what I'm now thinking for my team. I don't think it changes a huge amount, but for anyone that follows me on Twitter, I did retweet or quote tweet someone else who said that Lacazette has not trained again today. So that is now pointing towards the fact that he might be out this weekend. So that's another injury I have to deal with. And while that might seem that pushes me away from free hit, because I don't want to be left with this mess of a team afterwards, actually free hitting and then next week deciding what to do based on what happens in the FA Cup may now be a play. But I need to give it some thought because this has only just happened. So hopefully that was helpful. If it was, please do give it a like. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. And I promise you, more videos tomorrow to cover it even more. For any questions you have, I'll see you then.